Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the relationships, particularly the word symbiosis, the symbiotic relationships we saw in Justice League. But the weird thing about it is some of these relationships, they begin all the way back in Man of Steel. So we'll try our best to speak on these relationships because this movie is all about relationships in a way. That's the only way people can come together, and there are these themes and threads of symbiosis throughout this movie. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to try and cover topics like that. I'm going to just deal with one topic at a time because this thing, man, a Zack Snyder film is so layered it's not funny. So let's get into it. So first of all, when we see the Justice League in the beginning of the Justice League movie, or let's say when they come together finally, there is a prominent absence of one individual. Right? There's 5 of them, but one individual is not present, and that individual is, of course, the one and only Superman. And so when we're looking at the Justice League, he's not present. Okay? We're looking at him mostly in absence, and then coming down to the end of the movie, he is present. Alright, so let's talk symbiosis. I'm going to start off with the absent member of the Justice League first because I think that's the most important member, because that's where the DCU started. The DCU started because of Superman. Superman was the central focus of the DCU. He's like the foundation. Think of it like in this picture you're seeing here. He's like the foundation above which everybody else is built here, including Batman, who's definitely built on Superman. And that's his whole reason for forming the Justice League, is because of Superman. So let's talk about Superman's relationships, okay? His symbiotic relationships. Now, the first symbiotic relationship Superman has with any character, symbiotic, meaning he gives to that person and that person gives back to him, okay? Is in Man of Steel, it was Lois Lane. Now, Lois Lane's relationship with Superman, people always think she's just the damsel in distress. No. In Man of Steel, Lois Lane gives to Superman something that is psychological, it is mental, and it's very important. She gave him the confidence to trust her. Okay? Let me say that again. She gave him the confidence to trust her. Now, the first person that Superman ever trusted, at least when given in Man of Steel's story, is his adopted father and mother. Those were the 2 people he trusted because those people were out to protect him. You saw that his mother, while he was growing up as a little adolescent, she was able to rush to school and be able to help him to focus as he was in puberty and things were going haywire. And with gentleness and with kindness, she was able to protect him and shield him from other kids who didn't understand what was going on. Now, his father also sought to protect him, to shield him from the media and from the world, not to be a circus act, but just a normal human being. Even though he wasn't a normal human being, he was Kryptonian, and he raised him up almost as normally as they possibly could. Just imagine, these people had to tiptoe around the idea that this child could throw a tantrum and kill everyone and kill the whole entire Smallville town. You know, if this kid went on a rage, it would have been a problem. So they learned how to deal with this special child that they found in his spaceship so many years ago. So this is where Superman learned about trust. And in time, with discipline and his father keeping an eye on him, his mother and father pumping in really good sterling values, Superman was more of someone who did not use his powers to kill people or to mold them down, but instead he learned discipline, control, both emotionally and mentally, to be able to never really provide clear and present evidence that he was a superpowered being, even though most people suspected it and people even saw that he did certain remarkable things. There was never really a conclusive statement. Nonetheless, his Smallville community actually also was one that he could trust. Remember, he went to the priest, was a guy who had bullied him early on in his life, and then learned that this guy was really powerful. And so he was able to confide in these people. He could trust these people. Well, there was no one outside of his community, outside of his home, that was like that until this reporter lady who was investigating him, who came to the understanding of, found him and found out who he was and wanted to publish his story. When he explained his father's wish for him, that until he was ready, he should reveal himself to the world, she actually did not out him on those things. He was able to trust her, and that's where they formed a very close bond, because Lois Lane didn't out him even when she was being interrogated by the military and the FBI and the CIA and all these services. So because of that, he was able to trust Lois Lane. Lois Lane kind of saved his life. Even before he was Superman, she kind of saved him, because if they found out, the military would have come at him and tried to put probes in him and investigate him, and it would have been crazy. We wouldn't have a Superman story right now. So she kind of protected him. And that's where the symbiotic relationship began. Lois Lane, who's in media, she's supposed to know all kinds of things about all kinds of things. But thanks to Perry White, the story wasn't covered as well. She likes a good story. She ends up instead being one of his major confidants. Somebody in media, somebody who should be publishing his story. Instead, they used discretion, and they didn't. And because of that, Lois Lane protects Superman and protects the ideals he stands for, protects his image. And she comes to appreciate him even more. I think the conversation, what does the S stand for, kind of began everything. Or no, I think before that, when he was talking about how his father died to keep his identity, I think after that, she absolutely admired his quality. And I think from there on in, they had this relationship where she admired him for the ideals, the hopefulness of him. And he admired that she was someone who was honorable in terms of keeping his identity a secret, and also honorable in terms of what she said she would do, she did. Even though she wasn't always honorable in everything she did. And so this relationship led to Lois Lane being attached to Superman, and of course she's always in the middle of problems, so he ends up physically protecting her, and they have this symbiotic relationship that builds. Okay? That comes off of Man of Steel into Batman v Superman, where the stakes get a little higher. There's an antagonist in the story who is he's determined to try and defame Superman, poison his image, destroy him if he can. And Lois Lane, when this stuff starts to circulate in the media, she's very distressed about it. She feels she's partially responsible for that, and she goes on her own investigative journey to set the record straight and to protect Superman, which, of course, Secretary Swanwick, kind of outs it. You try to put a halo on him and you try to look good, but that's not true. And then later on, it shows that Superman was really good. He was doing the right thing, and he was just being set up, and she was able to do that. So she's always a protector of Superman. So it's not a one-way street. She's always looking to protect him. She's looking out for him. She's trying to guard him. His mother also tries to protect him. And in BVS, he actually ends up protecting his mother. Well, no, he doesn't protect his Batman protects his mother, sorry. He ends up protecting her again, Lois Lane. She ends up saving him again. He ends up saving her again. She ends up saving him again. And it's just back and forth, this symbiotic relationship. So, he saves her in the beginning of the movie in Naomi, Africa. She ends up hunting down this story that ends up publishing, saving his image post humus. That means after he died, posthumously. She saves his image again to the world by getting the story published about the truth of his story. He ends up saving her on the top of the building against Lex Luthor, who threw her down the building. She ends up saving him, even though she's not even present, by him reflecting on the reason why he is this beacon of hope to the world. She reminds him that she believes in him no matter what anybody else believes, and his mother also. So she ends up saving him in absence, which is kind of interesting. With Batman, it's the kind of the same thing. Superman ends up saving Batman in absence. So there's some parallels there. Um, and then she ends up again saving him after he dives down for the kryptonite spear. First, he saves her when she gets trapped underneath. She's trying to get the kryptonite spear back because she realizes it's useful. And then she ends up saving him when he goes to dive down to get the kryptonite spear, and he's just down there because the kryptonite has weakened him. So there's this to and fro. He eventually again saves her, even though she's trying to save him from getting himself killed because she's certain that he's going to go to his death. She's trying to save him and keep him back from going. He still goes anyway to save her because he says, "You are my world. This is my world. You are my world." And so there's this back and forth with them saving each other. It's really crazy. It's she's a superhero, by the way. Lois Lane is a superhero without superpowers. She's kind of like Batman in this movie. And then you have Justice League. And it's just so interesting how in Justice League, Lois Lane again saves Superman. And in this movie, she has never been saved by Superman. Not once is she saved by Superman. Well, indirectly, she's saved by Superman because they stopped Steppenwolf and they stopped the Mother Boxes. But if you think about it, she's the one that saves him from going to the dark side. Just like how Superman saved Batman from going to the dark side. And so that's the beauty of that symbiotic relationship between Lois Lane and Superman from Man of Steel all the way to Justice League. Alright? Let's talk about some other symbiotic relationships. I'm going to have to go through these a little bit faster. Alright? So we have Bruce Wayne, or Batman, and we have Superman. If you do remember, in Batman v Superman, Batman is out to kill Superman. He's out to kill Superman. He's egged on by Lex Luthor. He doesn't realize it. And he's on the verge of killing Superman. And Superman saves Batman. It's not Batman doesn't kill Superman and saves his life. No, it's Superman saves Batman. Batman's about to go across to the dark side. He's about to kill Superman. And Superman says, "Save Martha." And that is very interesting because when we look at these two orphan boys who both their fathers died, the one difference between Superman and Batman is Superman has his adopted mother. His real mother's dead. His real father's dead. But his adopted mother, who he loves and who has saved his life, has nurtured him, given him values, he has her. Whereas Batman has lost his mother. They both had the same name. And so what Superman gives to Batman in that moment in time, he gives him his mother back. And by giving him his mother back, he gives him his life back. And it's very interesting that in Justice League, we come full circle where Batman actually gives Superman his life back. He literally works, and it's interesting because there's another very important thing about the symbiotic relationship that happens here. And that is that there are two things Superman hadn't experienced. The first one was he had never been born of a Kryptonian amniotic chamber. He'd never been born in a Kryptonic amniotic chamber. He was a live birth. So his birth was never the typical Kryptonian birth. The second thing is he had never experienced mortality. Being a Kryptonian, he was almost immune to death. He was almost immune from dying, and he could live very, very long. Okay, it's almost like he was almost an eternal being, kind of like Wonder Woman. So the first thing is he experienced his humanity in Batman v Superman. This is the brilliance of Zack Snyder. He experienced his humanity at the end of Batman v Superman by actually being mortal, actually dying. It was at the hands of another Kryptonian nonetheless, but he understood what mortality, well, he experienced mortality. But the second thing was he experienced the Kryptonian birth. It's the crossing over of two worlds. And so they carried him back to the amniotic chamber in the Kryptonian ship. And this is where he was birthed. And he was birthed through baptism. And that's, for those who are Christians, they'll understand what Jesus said, you have to be baptized with this water that I am baptized with. And it's just so interesting, they had to submerge him down into the amniotic fluid, which had all the nutrients supplied to the cells to inject back. As they're injected with energy and they're imbued with life, they would get all the nutrients necessary to bring him back to life, right? So he was birthed in a Kryptonian ship in the amniotic fluid. Now, just this is a side note. I'll come back to it in a minute. I'll come back to the main point in a minute. But the point, this side note is this: that people saw the dust rise over Superman's coffin in BVS, but Zack Snyder clearly said to Collider Video. You can go check out the video on YouTube. Zack Snyder Collider Video BVS. He said that the dust rising off his coffin is not a clear indication that he's resurrected from the dead, but it's just a hint. It's supposed to hint to people that there's a possibility, there's a hope that he can be resurrected from the dead. That's what Zack Snyder said. He said, if I wanted to show that he was resurrected or he was alive inside of that coffin, there's a clearer way to send that signal. Zack Snyder was very clear on that in BVS. All right? And again, I go to the bioelectric aura. You can have, it's kind of like, if you're a conducting field, you're going to conduct electricity regardless, right? You're going to conduct. But when you're dead, the conductance is still there. You may still have a charge on you. You understand what I'm saying? But it's not going to be directly under your control. We have electromagnetic fields. When you die, all cells degenerate. Superman, when he died, his cells didn't degenerate. Unless you're in contact with kryptonite, those cells don't degenerate. And they heal back pretty fast anyway with kryptonite. So, what I'm saying is, Superman, his cells didn't break down. And they explained that in Justice League. So his cells still had that energy in him. And that's why you saw the bioelectric field rise above the coffin. But when he is awake or alive, he has what's called psychokinesis, which means he can control those bioelectric fields, and that helps him to control flight. It helps him to control repulsive power and stuff like that. Okay, so he definitely died in BVS, and if the actors and everybody said he was dead, people didn't believe me. But he had the potential to get this energy surge and to get this energy back into him from the mother box. The mother box heal him up and bring him back to life. And if you read about mother boxes, you know they can do that. They can bring back people to life. Darkseid was brought back to life. Steppenwolf can be brought back to life. Parademons, they are brought back to life sometimes using these, what they call them, the same thing. It's a mother box. It's called a energy changer, I think it's called. You guys remember what it's called? I can't remember what it's called. Something changer. So you guys just put that in the comment section below. Okay? Back to relationships. So the symbiotic relationship between Batman and Superman is that Batman, his life was saved by Superman, and then Superman, his life was saved by Batman, or resurrected because of Batman. Because Batman thought, we are not enough, which he said twice. He said it to Commissioner Gordon when he said, how many of you are there? Not enough. And then he said it when they were squabbling about, who should lead the team and stuff like that. And he said, we are not enough. We need Superman. So there you go. All right. So that's the symbiotic relationship. And there's going to still be antagonism between Batman and Superman. But one of the things that Superman did was give Batman hope. So even though Superman was dead, in his absence, as you say, posthumously, Batman, while he was alone, had the hope, and that's what helped him to drive the team together, even though he didn't have the tools necessary to keep the team together. And thank God Diana was there, because if it wasn't for that, it would have been a disaster. But Diana was able to pull this team together and get Cyborg on the team, even though Cyborg's father was kidnapped. Batman was, the Flash was going to be on that team regardless. Once he realized you're the Batman, that was like, yes, I'm looking for exceptional superheroes. We need to form a team. Stop right there. I'm in, right? So that's the relationship between Batman and Superman. And even in Superman's absence, the relationship between Batman and Superman got stronger because he began to really value who Superman was. And you hear Batman saying, he was more human than I was, and these kinds of things he said. Which actually comes back when Superman, I almost said Jesus, when Superman says, do you bleed? He doesn't say you will, but Batman ends it up with saying, "Oh, I think I'm bleeding," which is pretty funny. All right, let's move on. So let's talk about Batman and Diana, or Batman and Wonder Woman. That is also a symbiotic relationship. Now, it was one-sided in BVS, where Diana was basically the one nurturing Batman, getting him to change his mind about metahumans, and then coming and literally saving his life from Doomsday. Literally, Doomsday was going to light Batman afire. And Batman was going to get killed. He said, oh shit. He braced for impact. You know, Batman's a lucky dude, man. You got a beautiful woman like Wonder Woman protecting you, and she can kick ass. Yeah. I know he was attracted to her initially, but not anymore. Well, he still is, I guess. But the interesting thing about it is Wonder Woman protected him two ways. She helped him to be inspired to know that not all superpower beings or gods or aliens are bad. And two, that she literally protected him from a superpowered alien being that was created by Lex Luthor. And he certainly was going to meet his death. And she saved his life. Okay? So she saved his life twice. Now, how did Batman save Diana's life? Well, Batman encouraged Diana. He challenged Diana in his own gruff Batman-y way, in his asshole-ish way, to let her step up to the table, get out of the shadows, be that beacon of hope that Superman was, in her own way, because she's more nurturing, she's more, she gets people to do things they wouldn't normally do. She's a very inspirational. And he was like, how come such an inspirational, hopeful person like you, you know, I haven't heard about you. You've been around for at least 100 years here. How come? And then he challenges her with the Steve Trevor, and he says, Don't tell me what to do if you're in the same boat as me, okay? So we gonna get Superman. So, but in the end, she's kind of said, yes, I know I was supposed to lead, but she explains her backstory, and it's interesting that in his gruff own way, he gets her to actually lead. In the end, she actually steps up when again his life is in danger because he's kind of like on a suicide mission, taking on too much to handle. And, you know, Batman, he thinks the same thing that Aquaman believes. He says the strongest man is strong alone. And that's Batman. Batman liked to do the bulk of the thing, take the bulk of the responsibility. He didn't really know how to lead the team. And you could feel it. He continuously said, you know, the team needs Clark, not me. And you could tell that it was too much of a burden for him. And on top of that, it reminded him too much of his shortcomings in the past, where Robin was killed and whoever else, right? So he was still trying to make an effort, and he was saying to Diana, "You're not stepping up to the plate. You got all the abilities and skills to lead, and you ain't doing nothing. You ain't doing squat. So don't tell me what not to do. I'm exasperated. I need Superman." But she steps up to the plate, and she steps out, and she actually leads. And when the other team members were like, well, if Batman want to kill himself, she's like, he's surely going to go to his death. It's like, if he want to kill himself, so be it. We got 3 minutes to do what we got to do. Aquaman doesn't give a damn about Batman. And Cyborg's like, all right, cool. I'm going to roll with Aquaman. And the Flash is watching Wonder Woman like, you're going to let him die? You're going to let Batman die? The Flash is a trip, man. You guys need to watch it, The Flash. The Flash, he cracks me up. Of course, he's Ezra Miller. And you could tell he's a huge Batman fan, right? And the Flash is watching her like, what you gonna do, Wonder Woman? You really gonna let him die? Go watch the movie. It's so funny, man. It's funny because the look gives 1,000 words. And he looks like Sparky. You know, he always has this whole bunch of energy, man. The Flash is the trip, man. So he's watching Wonder Woman, and she says, on my lead, and she takes her leadership position. And you hear Cyborg talk about the lady. She didn't have it up for discussion. We wanted to just roll on, but she decided not a member of the team dies today, so that's why we coming back for you. And she was the first person to defend Batman, again, knocking off the parademons that was certainly going to kill his ass. And you know what's the thing with Batman? He's staring death in the face. This guy has no fear, man. And yet he has so much fear. He's staring death in the face. And you know what he says to the parademons? He says, what does he say, boy? He curses them. He's like a little demon, man. He curses the parademons. He says something. What does he say, boy? says, "You bitches," or some kind of shit like that. It's really funny. He looks at them in the face and he says, "You bitch," or some kind of thing like that, because he knows he's going to meet his end. And it's so cool. She just comes through and plows them off, and it's really cool to see Aquaman drop down on the Batmobile, and he's like, "Man, you really are out of your damn mind," because Batman's a little crazy. Let's just let it be what it is. He's psychologically got some misses and he got some screws loose. Okay, it's just what it is, folks. Batman's a little crazy. How you could call yourself Batman? It's really true. Aquaman's like, "You really dress up like a bat?" And then you want to advise me about ecosystems and stuff? He's like, "You dress like a bat? Bruce Wayne, you're out of your mind." It really is true. You think about it. Why is a dude dressing up as a bat? To scare people. Bats scare people. I think he said, Aquaman was like, was it Aquaman? Somebody said, you suck the blood out of people. No, I think I'm mixing that up with Justice League War. Yeah, anyway. So, Diana, he gives back to Diana. So there's a symbiotic relationship between those two. And they dialogue a little bit. You saw them dialoguing. She gives him information about the mother boxes and parademons. He's able to basically split up as a team. He gets the Flash, she gets Cyborg. They work together. And they work together pretty well. Even though I don't see them together at the end of the movie. She's back in London or somewhere helping some people, and he's somewhere else. And of course, Alfred wants them to get together. He's like, "Man, this is the ultimate woman. You should hook up with her." Alfred's a desperate, though. He's trying to get him to hook. He's trying to get Bruce, hook up, settle down, live a normal life. That's not happening. Ever, Alfred. I'm sorry, buddy. You'll die before that happens. But hey, you can hope. That's the symbol of this movie. Right, so that's the dynamic between them, and we saw it begin in BVS, and now we see it, and we got the backstory on Diana with Steve Trevor, so we understand her loss. We see that Bruce Wayne had his loss with Robin in BVS, so we can get the context behind what they're saying. Again, if you haven't seen those films and you see Justice League, you're still going to get that message because it's a standalone film, but it's nice looking at the trilogy and also Wonder Woman to see the movement of Batman, his development, and now we can understand this relationship between him and Wonder Woman even better, you know what I mean? Alright, let's move on. So, we got now, we don't really have much of a symbiotic relationship with Aquaman and anyone per se, but what I can tell you is that Aquaman, he is the king of the seas. Well, he's not the king of the seas yet. He's not a king at all. In fact, he seems to be antagonistic towards the Atlanteans and even Mira. Mira seems to be a very militaristic kind of person as well. And it's nice to see the soldiers and everything. Oh man, that underwater thing. It feels like if you're underwater for real. It's just awesome. But we'll talk about that later. The person I want to talk about, Superman has a symbiosis with the mother boxes, if you haven't realized that yet. And Cyborg elucidates this even more clearer in that he has an extra entity that controls him. He says that there's this entity that in his cybernetics, it's not just cybernetics, but an alien sort of technology that fused with him. And it seems to have some kind of its own decision-making process so that he modifies every day. That's not his control. Sometimes his defense mechanisms go alarm. They turn on. It's not under his control. So he's afraid because of that. And it's kind of horrific. And at a certain point in the movie, so he has a symbiosis with this foreign entity, this alien entity that's in him. So he has two, it's like there's something feeding off of him. It's not parasitic per se, but it's a symbiotic entity that he doesn't fully control. So I thought that was very interesting. And with the Flash, we know that his thing is his... And by the way, Cyborg also has somewhat of a relationship with Diana in the sense that she's mentoring him as Batman is mentoring the Flash. Now, I gotta say, those are not symbiotic relationships. Like Cyborg and Wonder Woman, it's more of a mentor relationship. Batman and the Flash, it's a mentor relationship. And I wouldn't be surprised, we haven't seen it in this movie, but I wouldn't be surprised Aquaman, he gets mentored a bit by Superman. But I do see that Batman and Wonder Woman are sort of mentoring Aquaman, letting him vent, letting him speak his mind, and I think in time, those guys can help him out as he goes on his own personal journey. So we have mental relationships between Wonder Woman and Cyborg, and the Flash and Batman. We have interrelationships between Aquaman and Cyborg. They start off hostily towards each other at first, but later on they work together again, Cyborg and Aquaman. And we didn't get a whole lot to see the depth of their relationship and how it evolved, so I can't really say much about it. Flash has a nice little relationship with Cyborg going on there. He reached out to Cyborg, and when they said we're the accidents, I think they connected with one another a bit. And also, I think that since they were the youngest team members, they seemed to have an understanding between each other. We saw the Flash help Cyborg get to the destination in Russia, get him in, and get him to go to work. And then we saw that the Flash was trying to protect Cyborg. I mean, he moves very fast, but you know, he's fragile. The Flash is not big and strong like Cyborg, you know. And we saw, have we seen Cyborg protect Flash or anything like that? What did Cyborg do for Flash? I know that Cyborg, he cracked the mother boxes open. What did he do for Flash? Did he do anything for Flash? Did he protect Flash or something? I can't remember. So I can't really say if they had a symbiotic relationship, but they had something going on there between them. So I think Cyborg kind of educated Flash on Steppenwolf, you know, and what Steppenwolf does, and how powerful he is, and why this is a good risk, because it was a risk to bring back Superman, right? So those are some of the symbiotic relationships. But I think that the key symbiotic relationships that go all the way through the movie are Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman's relationships with either each other or with other people like Lois Lane and so on that they had. Oh, I must also mention the relationship between Batman and Alfred. I forgot about that. And their relationship is interesting because Alfred was a mentor to Batman. And I'm thinking if Batman ever did anything for Alfred. Has Batman ever done anything for Alfred? Not really. Not really. Alfred keeps on doing everything for Batman. But they have a symbiotic relationship in that Batman helps Alfred. He gives him coffee. In BVS, he gave him coffee. And he does a few things for Alfred. But mostly, I think Alfred does things for Batman. And again, Alfred seemed to be intuitive and was very happy when the team came back to protect Batman. He was very, very happy and thankful for that. And you heard him say, "This is the team," which really made him happy. So, didn't see much of Alfred at the end of the film either. Which is very interesting. But, yes, that's basically it for relationships in this film. I'm trying to think if Diana ever actually did anything for Aquaman. I know she and Aquaman were fighting Steppenwolf, and she also was a commander. When it comes to fighting, she tells Aquaman what to do. She tells the troops what to do. Like she told Aquaman to go after Superman. She told Aquaman to go after Steppenwolf. And you can see she commands the troops. Whatever she says to do, they do. And she said, on my lead, when they were engaging to save Batman and then get in to deal with Steppenwolf. And what's interesting is, after she saved Batman, she went off to deal with Steppenwolf. She was the first to land and engage Steppenwolf. She was the first line of defense. And then Aquaman came in right after her. And if you notice, she's the first one to engage the enemy every single time. And she's a serious battle warrior. She's a serious soldier. And this has been consistent. BVS, she's the first person to engage Doomsday. I mean, really take the fight to him. You know, Batman tried with his little shippy thing. Superman tried to push him into outer space. But she was there to fight Doomsday. In Wonder Woman, she was the one taking the fight to Ares. She was the one taking the fight to Ludendorff. Alright? In Justice League, she's the first one to take the fight to Steppenwolf. She's the first one. She don't play. She goes straight at him. And another thing, the difference between her and say Mira or even Hippolyta and the Amazons. And the Amazons are fearless. They go at you. But whereas Hippolyta ran from Steppenwolf, and Steppenwolf laughed when she ran. And he said, "Run!" And he came after her. Unlike that, Diana does not run. Diana does not run at all. I ain't never seen Diana take a step back. Diana keeps on coming. And that's really sick. So in all of these warriors here, all of these superheroes, I mean, Superman don't run either, but I mean, the power levels between Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman, these are the strongest members of the team. Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Superman are the strongest physical members of the team. But the difference in power levels between Superman and the rest of the Justice League is ridiculous. I mean, Superman is ridiculously powerful compared to all those other guys. He's on a whole other level, you know. So, you know, Steppenwolf was... I was just so shocked at how strong Superman was compared to Steppenwolf. He's so much faster, too. So, Steppenwolf's not a match for Superman. I mean, Superman has to be depowered. But this has always been so. If you ever watched the animated series with Steppenwolf, Superman had to be depowered to really engage with Steppenwolf. He couldn't fly and stuff. And Steppenwolf had his weapons and tools and stuff. Yeah. But toe to toe, full strength, Superman kills Steppenwolf. I mean, well, I don't know if he kills him, but he beats the crap out of him. You know what I'm saying? And Superman and Darkseid. Darkseid is very, 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 very powerful, especially with his Omega beings. But Superman actually engages Darkseid. He has fought Darkseid a number of times. So, you know, Steppenwolf really isn't in Superman's league. And I can understand why the Justice League movie couldn't have Superman in there. And you had to have, if you had Superman in there, Steppenwolf would have long since been history. But especially this version of Superman, which is a regenerated Superman, who is stronger, faster, quicker, and everything better than the Superman before, because he's sort of gotten some of that surge from the Mother Box. So the Mother Box is also fused into him. And that's what has happened with Cyborg. Cyborg became better, stronger, quicker, faster, and everything. All his enhancements have become more modified because he's fused, you know, the Mother Box infused some of its energy into him. So it's just crazy, man. So you got a better Superman than when he was not dead before. So it's crazy. But I thought that this was awesome to talk about these relationships. So the main relationship dynamics we're talking about are between these three members, as well as, well, there's no relationship dynamic per se between Superman and Wonder Woman. You just saw them fight, but we haven't really seen them dialogue or talk with one another as yet. Well, there was a little bit of talk between them, but Diana ain't on this. Strength-wise, she's not on Superman's level. Skill-wise, she probably is. Strength-wise, no. She ain't in Superman's league. And what's cool is that, you know, when we talk about the symbiotic relationships between each of these members, you know, Diana with Batman, Superman with Lois Lane, Batman with Superman, and Superman with Batman. It's just interesting how we get to see the core of the Justice League and the oldest members of the Justice League truly displaying why they were able to come together, you know. So I thought I'd share that with you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. You guys have a great one.